introduction to everyone who's watching this recording, especially, and then those obviously joining us about what ChiBizHub is, an initiative of World Business Chicago dedicated to providing resources for entrepreneurs and small business owners to start, scale, or accelerate their business here in Chicago. We, as many of you know, being our business resource providers, that we grow our entrepreneurial community of Chicago through our resource network with over 165 nonprofit and government and educational organizations that serve small and medium-sized businesses. We're committed to providing our entrepreneur community with all of the resources that are made up of every single one of you. And as part of this, if many of you do not know, we have since March launched our COVID-19 resource page, and we want to direct everyone there at www.chibizhub.com/COVID-19 support as a place where not only our BRPs, but also the entrepreneurial community can regularly turn to for updated resources and information to help businesses weather this storm. This page is frequently updated with valuable information and resources, programs, grants, and more. This is where you all see anything that you're providing that we post on there. Please be sure to sign up for the ChiBizHub newsletter if you haven't done so already, and follow us on social media for updated information and any of our upcoming webinars. Thank you. I see that we have Andy back, so I'll go ahead and kick it off to her.
Yeah, sorry guys, I was here, but apparently I was muted and talking to myself. But what I was saying was, I'm really pleased to be here to welcome you to this webinar today. The whole idea around this webinar was, since you've been helping us to provide information and resources and support to the small business community, we wanted to take some time to provide some information and resources that might be useful to all of you. All of you know, as we do, that small businesses trying to find access to the resources they need can be really challenging for them, particularly when they're just trying to run their businesses. And that's what ChiBizHub is all about, as you just heard from Jasmine. We cannot do that without you. If we don't have resource providers who are willing to be recognized and listed on the site, then we don't have the resources for the businesses. So we cannot thank you enough. I think all of you know that the site has been an incredible access and support for the small business community during this COVID-19 pandemic and all of the impacts from the shutdowns and the impacts that small businesses have had. So being able to have your information up there and have you support and be resources for the small businesses that come to us, and literally in the thousands over the last few months, we cannot thank you enough. So thank you for being here, but I wanted to take a special moment out to just say thank you to you for all that you're doing to help make Chicago's neighborhoods, their communities, and their small business community strong and thriving, because without that, the city cannot live up to its full potential. So thank you for all you do, and we hope that you find the webinar this afternoon helpful and useful.
Thank you so much, Andy. We greatly appreciate the time that she was able to provide to us this afternoon. Thank you, Jasmine, for that great introduction. My name is Kendra Thomas, and I am the second half of ChiBizHub. I'm Jasmine's colleague, and so we are extremely delighted today to bring you a wonderful webinar that is definitely going to provide you with clarity during these times. And so for today's agenda, we will have a wonderful presentation by a special guest. And then after we actually allow that particular guest to go through their presentation, Jasmine and I will have a Q&A section with them. And if in the event there are any questions that you have, please send them in the chat if we're not able to get to them, or you can email us again at info@chibizhub.com, and we will be sure to answer the questions. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest panelist today, Mr. Emmanuel Garcia. And so we are just delighted to have you here. And I want to share with you all a little bit about his background. So who he is, what he does. And I'm going to start with, first of all, thank you. We appreciate you taking the time and being here today with us. So Mr. Emmanuel Garcia is the Development and Communications Manager at Crossroads Fund. In addition to that, he is a community organizer and founder of VivesQ, a public program for and by Latinx LGBTQ community in Chicago. Emmanuel actually started fundraising as a youth when he co-founded the Association of Latinos Motivating Action, also known as ALMA, scholarship, an award that is given annually to 2 Latinx LGBTQ youth. So before joining the staff at Crossroads Fund, he led a social marketing campaign in Cicero, Illinois that addressed homophobia, transphobia, and HIV and AIDS stigma within the Latinx community. So thank you so much for joining us, Emmanuel. We are extremely grateful to have you. And I'm going to kick it off to you so you can definitely share your presentation.
Thank you, Kendra, and thank you, Jasmine, and the amazing team at ChiBizHub and World Business Chicago. Thank you for that introduction. Again, my name is Emmanuel Garcia. I've been at Crossroads Fund for over 5 years. And as Kendra mentioned, my background is in grassroots organizing. My initial experience in fundraising started when I was younger, starting a scholarship to support Latinx LGBTQ young people access higher education, and have since seen the impact that pulling funds together has on the critical work that organizations and organizational leaders like you are doing. Some of this may be new to you today or not, and if it's not, I hope that today is an affirmation of your work and your planning, or at the very least that you leave with a couple of new ideas on how to approach your work at this time. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about Crossroads Fund, just briefly. If we can go to the next slide. Crossroads is a public foundation. What that means is that we raise the money that we give away in grants. We do that through a community-led grant-making process. This fiscal year that just ended, we awarded over $1.2 million in grants to over 140 groups. Over 70% of our funds come from individual support. So we know what it's like to fundraise day after day. We're also small in our human resources structure. We're a staff of 7, the entire staff, not one department. So as you can imagine, we wear many hats, especially on the development side. I would like to start today by taking a poll. I want to hear from you. We're having a conversation about fundraising in these uncertain times. And I would like to use the poll feature to know what is something that is on your mind. What area of fundraising do you have concerns about? Has your organization been thinking about or thinking through? Some of the options are, the gala planning, your annual fundraiser, how to pivot to an online event. Another option is your fall appeal. Will you get those end of year gifts? Some clarity about what is fundraising going to look like after 2020 and 2021, or something else. If it's different, feel free to add it in the chat box. Someone else may be thinking about the same thing. So let's see if people, I can take it too, I think. It gives me the option. So let's see if we can, in a little bit, get your results after everyone takes it. Let's see, maybe I need to, I see it now. It looks like a lot of people are thinking about the future, right? Clarity around fundraising in 2021. People are thinking about their annual event, the success of their fall appeal, that's probably the least, and maybe other. If you, like me, wanted to say all of the above, I hear you, I see you, and that's why we're here. I know that a lot of these items are things that we've been thinking through in this moment, and you must know that other people share the same questions or concerns. So definitely know that you are not alone and that this experience is new to all of us. So thank you for that. And what a wild ride 2020 has been, right? And we're only halfway there. So let's move on to the next slide, please. The global pandemic has affected all layers of society and continues to present new challenges every day. These are not normal times by any means. However, these times are presenting new opportunities. The stay-at-home order across the country has forced many people to adjust their work from home. Calling someone through a video call is the norm rather than the exception these days. So I know this image is very familiar to a lot of us. Maybe they're not cats, but we wish they were cats some days to keep us a little entertained. Yes, but it is our new virtual reality. So I would like us to move forward to the next slide. This quote, virtual unquote reality has created this radical cultural shift in the way we communicate and do our work day to day. People of all ages are more aware of how to engage with online tools, and that's not something we're going to forget anytime soon. Yes, we do anticipate that people will tire, and I'm tired, as I mentioned earlier, of virtual meetings, but they are now part of our communication and engagement culture. It also has created a level of accessibility for people who couldn't attend our in-person events. It has allowed us to engage with our communities directly without the layers of planning that involve securing a venue or food, tech support, parking, etc. So when we think of fundraising and what we're learning in these times, I want us to consider this as part of the way we do our work moving forward. We can't go back to having in-person fundraising events and not live stream the program, or not having a mix of an in-person event and offering virtual programming throughout the year. It's just now part of our work. So if we can move to the next planning. Whether your annual fundraiser, regardless of the size, or a campaign that you're planning, virtual or not, typically it'll take about 6 months to plan. Just because you don't have to secure a venue or look for a caterer, it still requires planning. So I really want to emphasize that, because I think sometimes we think that virtual events are kind of like, oh, we can just put it out there, and it doesn't take the same level of planning as in-person fundraising, and it really does. This moment also means that we need to revisit our goals. For Crossroads, when we pivoted our annual event earlier in the spring from an in-person event to an online event, we had to reassess our goal. Did we want to raise $150,000? Were we going to be able to? And we decided to go for it. And so the goal of our annual event isn't just monetary. So canceling it wasn't an option, because we know that it brings our community together. It celebrates the awardees that we have in our program. And that was a huge part of the motivation for us to host our virtual fundraiser, to honor their work. And one thing that we did do is we did decide not to send out a spring appeal letter this year. So we did adjust, and I'll share more about that later. The type of event, for example, for our virtual fundraiser, we decided that we wanted to spread out the event over a week. This would also give people time to bid on silent auctions and to donate. But I will say that a week is a lot for a virtual event. I know our staff agrees that if we were to do it again, we would shorten the time frame. Maybe it's a weekend for you, or a one-day event versus 7 days. I'm still triggered by that. And communicating with your supporters is very important. They really want to hear from you first that you're planning on going virtual. So now's the time to start letting them know, we're thinking about doing this differently this year. For example, for our sponsors and advertisers that we have, we share just how important their support meant, especially at this time. By going virtual, it created new ways to acknowledge our sponsors and advertisers. We featured them on our website and emails and social media. They definitely got more shout outs online than ever. So definitely let them know that, you know, their exposure, quote unquote, it will be different and much wider than in-person event. You know, preparing, while there are things that you won't have to do, you know, such as cook food or move chairs around or tables or staff an event, you will need to come up with an internal game plan for your staff. Our fundraising team consists of like 5 people, but all of the staff supported in some way. So just definitely determine the your capacity. You know, virtual meant that it required more video, graphic design, and website management. Some of those tools may be new to you, so definitely practice or invite someone who has those skills to be part of the team if you don't already have someone. And yeah, so I really want us to repurpose or reimagine our work. So in a minute, I'm going to ask you, what things do you normally do that you can repurpose or reimagine virtually or digitally? You know, we can definitely support each other by sharing ideas. And so here are some that we recently did at Crossroads Fund to repurpose and reimagine. For our annual event, every year we have an awards presentation. So we always create a video that highlights the awardees' work. So we repurposed that video that normally we would have just shared in the program, and we shared it online as a Facebook watch party. Silent auction, our in-person silent auction this year went online. Normally we raise $7,000, but because we opened it up to a broader audience, we raised $14,000. Now you have to think creatively, because if you were auctioning off baseball tickets or a concert, those things might not be available. So consider maybe auctioning off a virtual coffee or a cocktail with a notable person in your network. Maybe it's Beyonce. Let me know. The DJ, usually already DJs have a built-in capacity to stream online. Most DJs are already doing it. You've seen them on Instagram, on Twitch, on Facebook Live. They already have that capacity. So link up with the DJ, you know, have them also make a playlist that you can share afterwards, you know, that people can connect to your own account on Spotify of your organization. I love the face painting idea because it's an experience that you get at a birthday party, for example, right? But maybe you're going to have a small virtual fundraiser for 20 people. You can have an illustrator, artist come in and do digital illustrations of your guests. You can also use that as an incentive, like, you know, in your advertisement of your event, you know, we're going to have digital illustrations, or you can auction it off. Maybe it's a well-known artist that is willing to do a digital illustration of someone that you can auction off. You know, these are things that are happening not in person, keeping in mind this new world that we're in at the moment. Engage people by asking them to submit songs that they want to contribute to a playlist. I find that crowdsourcing or creating something, co-creation, is really a good engagement tool. You can make a Google form, and, you know, someone on the team can put it together and share all of the songs that people submitted as one playlist. So that's another idea. You also don't have to think about all these ideas on your own. If you have a fundraising committee or volunteers, invite them in to help you repurpose and reimagine. Sometimes it's important for someone outside of the team to come in with fresh eyes, you know, because you might be too worried about the numbers or the logistics that you're usually used to, and someone new may just come in with a new perspective. So definitely reimagine what your fundraising looks like in this moment. I did want to go over to the postcard that we shared, you know, in the next slide. One thing I will say is that we did differently this year is that we traditionally send out a spring appeal letter in mid-April. We decided this year not to do that because we felt, given how much loss and uncertainty was happening locally and in the world, we wanted to say thank you to our donor base. We did that by sending a postcard. We wanted it to be interactive, again, reimagining. How could we get more out of this postcard? So we had it linked to a special a page on our website that repurposed some of the things that I mentioned, that we did in our virtual fundraiser, like the DJ playlist. We have a podcast at Crossroads that we've been doing for over a year. We repackaged it for this page and reshared it. We repurposed it, right? Our podcast, and added other, new digital elements. So I think we can see the image. If we go over to just the next slide, we'll be able to see what the postcard looks like. And I just want to show you what the kind of the QR code looks like. It'll show up, right? I'm assuming I'm not the only one not seeing it, so. Okay, good. So, so it'll come up. So this moment is, it's asking us to be aware and to be in touch. I want to repeat that. It's a moment for us to be in touch, not out of touch with our donor community. So this is why we decided to not do our spring appeal. We already know that the spring appeal isn't something that we normally get a lot out of anyway. And so we felt we wanted to really focus on saying thank you in this moment, so that we could come back in the fall and, obviously do our end of year appeal. And I think people would feel it was more appropriate than if we had just responded in this moment with our just traditional appeal letter that we normally send out. So we could go to the next slide. I'm going to look at the chat to see if there's anything interesting in this that anyone's mentioned. And again, just a reminder to feel free to share the, to add anything you want, questions you might be having in the chat box. Okay, well, we can come back to the postcard slide, but maybe we can move over to another area, which is support. You can't do this alone. So I want to hear from you. What ideas have you executed in the past 6 months, or in the past in general, that you've repurposed or that you could repurpose to a virtual setting? Maybe some ideas in the chat box that you might have. Maybe something I said gave you an idea. So if you want to just go in, and I will pick one or two. Don't be shy.
Emmanuel, while we wait for, folks to chime in, I definitely wanted to, as someone who's attended your events, I have to make sure that, our audience knows that something that was really unique and I think kind of stuck with me in attending your events, and I think was very successful, was just the engagement. I don't know if we covered this in the beginning, but I mean, it's the breakout sessions, right? Like, you're not talking about everything that you shared is not just going on in one central place. Like, it's breakout sessions. You didn't even have to break the bank either. I mean, you used Zoom, I believe, correct, to do all of this, to make it happen. And Zoom, I feel like, is pretty affordable in terms of a platform and just user friendly, right? Because everybody's using Zoom, so there's that. But I think also is, making sure that our audience knows that the examples that you gave were in breakout sessions. And then you also made sure that, there were a couple of times where you can win prizes while, like, if someone is getting their face painted on one side and then someone else is, like, for example, getting, their cards right in another section, and then you have the DJ playing in another section, right? There's just, you're curating so many different experiences in one, that even like later when people chat about what experience they had with Crossroads through all of this, right? That they're like, oh wait, but like they have their own personal experiences that they also had within like just the entire experience, right? Like there's individual ones. So I think I just wanted to make sure that our audience knew about that there's just so many, you know, I think many of us know of like a generic version of like Zoom or even other platforms, but there's just so many things you can do once you start asking these questions of like, how can we make it more interactive? How can we, you know, ensure that our audience is being engaged? And so, yeah, I hope, you know, the audience is getting this part of it, because it made for the experience to be great, and it makes me want to go back, because then I know what was said in the beginning, right? Folks are talking about fundraising in the future. You still have certain events that you have to put on right now, right? But then also it's going to make someone, you know, that's already an active giver for you, or not even a new giver, because like you said, you were able to increase your outreach to others because of the platform that you were on. But now I want to go back, because I'm like, oh, I remember that was a really great experience. So for 2021, I'm going to join in again.
Yeah, it's really important to use the, you know, the breakout rooms in Zoom, or either one-on-one, as you were mentioning. So like the digital illustration, you have someone in one room who's waiting for someone to come in that you can manage and put them in that room. Another idea is like a tarot reader that's on the other side. And there's so many ideas that you can do digitally. I just think that sometimes we think traditionally, and we don't think about like what are the other options, like like the virtual coffee with Andrea's up, they could be, you can auction that off. So I think it's thinking outside of the box, because people want that one-on-one time with someone, and maybe those people especially in this moment, are a little bit more flexible because they can do it from the comfort of their own home. They're kind of used to this now. It's this part of our culture. It's not like you're asking, wait, what? Someone's going to be in the background of my house. It's already part of the culture, so it's more accessible to do it that way. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, because I think it's more of the how, right? Not the what. Like, how are you going to do that? Yeah. So I'm going to move forward. What items were available for the silent auction? So we had a lot of artwork, I would say, artwork. We did have a lot of restaurant gift certificates, which are still, people are still using to pick up food, obviously differently. And we did tell people that the things that they were going to, that they could pick things up after a certain date, because we knew that we weren't going to be able to give people their items right away. And so we do have a system right now when people are picking up items at the office. We offer a couple days, because we do go into the office to pick up mail. So that person usually meets with someone if they need to pick up a silent auction item. But that's how we're handling that. Yeah. I want to move over to support, and just thinking of, you can't do this alone, that you're going to need, the staff you're going to need, which could be people that you're not normally thinking about in fundraising right now, traditionally, that are outside of your development team. It's like, program admin, board members, volunteers that support your fundraising. Include them in the thinking through these ideas, because the more people, the more creativity at this moment, I think, will have you create something where you will stand out. I think Jasmine pointed out creating an experience, right? And something that's memorable. Now you have to stand out, and then everyone's done a virtual program. And if you, for some reason, aren't doing it well, that's also part of the memorable piece. So, when you do it well, people will remember that, and, they'll keep coming back to your programming, to your organization, to how you're doing it. So definitely rely on, the skill sets that maybe you may not have. And I think that for me personally, there's definitely definitely some things that I'm really not good at, like managing tech. It's a little bit making me a little anxious, and so I do have to rely on other people normally than I normally would. And so it is a humbling moment, but it's an important moment because you need to expand the way that you're thinking of your team. And then just finally, just some things to consider. If you have one massive email list, I know that many of you are already segmenting your list, your appeal list, your donor list. But consider segmenting the list to send, special appeals to people who haven't made a gift in 2020. So there might be some people who have already given, and you just want to maybe go back and be more strategic. Be aware not to create donor fatigue, because everything and communication right now is through email. People are getting a little bit tired of getting email, and they will skip over some of your emails if you're sending too many. So, or if you're asking frequently. For example, I share that because when we did our virtual celebration for 7 days, what it meant was we were sending out one email each day, and that's a lot, and each email was basically an appeal, and it went to all of our list. It wasn't segmented because it's our annual event. And that played a part in us making a decision not to send the spring appeal, because we really felt like we had fatigued our donors. They're like, we just supported you. I just got all those emails. So just be aware of that. Communication, a lot of these digital fundraising events, I've said this already, special programs, virtual panels that engage donors, they require communications and graphic support. This may not be your primary role, so make sure someone has those skills and is always at the table. A lot about virtual fundraising, is visual and requires someone who understands how users engage online. And that's very different than, your in-person walkthrough of a event, so definitely have someone who knows how to engage online. And just a reminder that the things that you're thinking about today, they're here to stay. So you're going to see more and more organizations include virtual events in their fundraising strategies throughout the year. So the more you start to engage in that way, the better prepared you're going to be, moving forward next year. Yeah. So I just wanted to open it up to the Q&A.
Emmanuel, I think we do already have a couple of questions lined up, so I want to make sure we cover these. One of our members has a question, and please speak to the best of your ability on this one. Do corporate sponsors who typically sponsor galas and other events have the same appetite for sponsoring COVID virtual events?
Yes, I would say that they are, whoever your sponsors traditionally are, the relationships you've already built, those are the ones that I would go back to first, because it's more important for them to also be in that. Maybe you have a different call with them where you say, what are some ideas you have of ways that we can, meet what we traditionally do in a different way in this moment. And, it might be different branding. It might be, how, for example, one thing I've seen people do is, how people have their own digital backgrounds, virtual digital backgrounds on Zoom. You can create one that sort of has the logos of the organizations that support it, and you send those out to people in an email saying oh, if you're going to join us for the virtual happy hour, you can use this background. It's like your own step and repeat, of at the organization, and it's fun and it spreads their message. So there's different ways I would say engage them and ask them. Don't be afraid to ask them about what are some ways that they think they could meet the same goals. And I think that you'll be surprised at some of the things that they'll come up with. Yeah.
Thank you. I would also like to add to that, though, a little bit, just because we're kind of, changing our thinking about the way we're doing virtual events and fundraising, right? And I would encourage our audience to think about right now in this very time and place, and this kind of goes a little bit to a previous comment when you said that you were kind of auctioning off artwork, and I was going to ask you about, well, whose artwork are you auctioning off of? And I mean, it would be remiss if I didn't say, obviously support our small businesses, but right now, the consumer is really thinking about where they're putting their money, right? So in terms of your corporate sponsor question, I feel like corporate sponsors right now know they need to be conscious also of who they're giving their money to, and it's in their best interest to have an organization like Crossroads or any of our business resource providers that are helping out the small business owners here in Chicago, that yes, you want that corporate sponsor logo in the background while you're having the conversation or you're hosting any type of event, because your consumer, your audience, they're watching, they're seeing who's actually putting their money in what they're saying, in what they're kind of putting out. So I would encourage you to kind of just think about it in that way as well. I think we have a next question, right, Manny? Our other questions are kind of linked together. The next one is having to do with, how far in advance should folks plan for events? And then if you have any other suggestions for other platforms, because folks are feeling a little zoomed out.
Yeah, I would say that, again, traditionally 6 months. At the least, I would say 3 months. So at the most 6 months, at the least, I would say 3 months of planning. You want to be able to spread the word, get the things you need together. So I would say 3 months. And then Brenda, I feel you, and I am so sorry that there aren't a lot of platforms that I would recommend. I would say for bringing people together, unfortunately right now, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, it's Zoom. But one thing I will say is, for example, when we did our virtual event, it was all actually not live. So it was, like I mentioned earlier, it was emails that people could access whenever they opened their email. So the awardee video was in the email. The language was written as if you were, in the event when you opened the email, but it was up to them to access that and engage with it, whenever. So if we were asking for them to contribute a song to the playlist, that was in the email. It wasn't happening live. The live piece is really for, those kind of smaller events. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. So Jasmine and I have actually a few questions that we wanted to ask, and I know the audience will definitely be appreciative of this. So thank you again for your time. Now, let's talk a little bit about balance. So how do you strike the right balance, reaching out to potential donors and being very sensitive during this pandemic? We know that sometimes people that we may ask for donations from, they themselves have experienced burnout. They have experienced some financial difficulties with their own organization. So how do you balance that?
Can you repeat the first part of it? I caught the end of it, but.
Sure. So how do you actually strike the right balance with being an organization and asking donors for money, but being sensitive that they could have been impacted pretty much during this pandemic?
Yeah, I would assume that a lot of people that we have all been affected by this pandemic. So I would start there, right? That we've all been affected in one way. I think that acknowledging that is super important, that we just going in, not making an assumption that they're not impacted. And also, I would say the opposite of that too. Don't assume that they're not going to give or that they're not able to give, because you're on the other end where I think I shouldn't ask because they might not have the funds. That's not up to you. That's up to the donor to decide how they want to engage. It's kind of our jobs as organizations to really highlight the importance of our work. And we can't stop doing that, and we can't stop asking for the support that we need. And just knowing that people are going to be able to, make that decision for themselves. So I would say the balance for me is just to acknowledge that people are going through hard times, and also to maybe provide other alternatives other than making it just monetary. So if you can't give, please forward this email to a friend so they know about the important work that we're doing. Because people want to help. They believe in your work. That's why they're in your system. That's why they connected to you. So they're part of your community.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Appreciate that. For our next question, I wanted to, if we can leave our audience with one or two creative ideas for them to kind of, think about in terms of breaking through the clutter of this overwhelming and constant news. I mean, we saw it in our audience right now. They're like, I'm zoomed out, I'm done, right? So like, what can you do if Crossroads has already done this? Share, like, what can one do to break all of this cycle and share your organization's message at the end of the day?
Yeah, I would say, I think I would lean more into, I think it's right now in this moment, one thing that we've been talking a lot about as a team has been, these times are hard. There's a lot happening. There's so many things coming at us sideways every day. Every day there's something new. And something that you have to find in these moments are the self-care, the joy, the not lose hope. So anything that you can kind of shift the tone for someone right now is really helpful. No one wants to, go into a virtual setting with no music in the background. Really set the stage, set the mood. Don't be afraid to laugh. I think that the things that you find joy in are the things you should be incorporating into your work. As soon as you turn off the Zoom meeting or this one, you're like, okay, it's already 4 o'clock. I'm gonna have a glass of wine or some tea, whatever it is. Incorporate that. Say, hey, maybe my donor community wants to have a little virtual gathering that we're not going to talk about anything. We're just going to meet up with each other. You don't have to do the how is everyone feeling. Let's start there. Just what brought you joy this week. So definitely lean into that side of things more, because I think people will remember that.
Awesome. So we did actually get another question from the audience. And so, Emmanuel, can you please share with us, for your virtual event, did you offer sponsorship levels, or have you done any virtual events that did require sponsorship levels? If you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, we did have sponsorship levels. And well, I will say that the majority of when we pivoted to online, we were 60% of our goal in, and we had already obviously reached out to our sponsors, because we shifted maybe 3 weeks before the actual fundraiser. But a lot of our sponsors come from individuals. So those relationships are the ones that I anticipate we're going to go back to this upcoming year. So so we did have sponsorship levels, and I will say that if you are already thinking about that, I would start to warm up those relationships now, and not just for the sake of your annual event. Yeah. I just wanted to share because on my end, the screen is frozen into the repurpose, reimagine slide, FYI. But I wanted to, when you see the postcard, if you see it, I go back to the postcard. I wanted you all to know like the page that it goes to. And so I wanted you to get an idea of what repurposing, what I mean when I say that we repurpose some of these items. So if you go to that URL, I think I'm gonna send it right now to the whole chat. I accidentally sent it to Caroline. You can see, you can go to the URL after this and kind of like poke around, but that's essentially where the postcard took you. So I want you all to just think about, what that may look like for you, how you can digitally say thank you by sending something out, and then having it linked to your website and taking them somewhere else. And again, leaning more into the joy and the hope in this moment, so that people remember that. And we got a lot of people who tagged us on Instagram because they got the card. They loved the illustration from the artist, so they tagged the artist. People really responded that this is what they needed in this moment. So I just encourage you to not also just think about fundraising, but think about the thank you,
I think it might be frozen, Emmanuel, but I want to make sure. We got another question about what did your event sponsors want in exchange? What virtual and marketing event elements did they like most? Logos, database? I don't know if you can elaborate on any of those.
Yeah, so I would say we traditionally offer is at the event, we have screens all over the place that we put their ads, whatever ads they send us, and we highlight them in the program. That's the traditional thing, right, on the podium. And so what we did this year is they were included in all of the emails. So, the email went out, there were 7 emails. They were always included in that. And it also had language like, look at, please, meet the organizations or businesses that are supporting us in these critical moments. And so that it invited people to be more curious about looking at the ads. And then again, on social media, on our website, listing them. That was primarily how we do it. Our sponsors are not always looking for, some major ask generally. Yeah, but again, I would invite you to ask them, what they've seen or what would be helpful for them. Because the other thing is, I will say that some businesses who've supported us in the past, like for example, our caterer, we weren't able to meet our contract with our caterer, and it's a lot of money that they lost in that contract. So I offered them, would you want a free ad? What would you want that ad to say? Even though they didn't give us anything, because I really wanted them to know that we were supporting them in this moment, that it didn't cost us anything to include their logo in our email. So I would say, think about also at those small businesses that are being affected, and maybe and that you want to continue to build relationships with them. Don't forget about them. If they can't offer you something, reach out to them. If they supported you in the past, and say, hey, we'll include you. Don't worry, we got you. It goes a long way, because you never know when that's going to come back to you. And again, paying artists, paying vendors, that was a huge commitment that we made. And I would say, if you already have it in your budget, move forward with doing that. Our photographer, we paid them, even though They didn't do the event photography, but we anticipate that we're going to use them in the future. And so we still we said, you know what, we're still going to send you the check that we were going to send you. And let's continue to work together.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. I mean, I can see through the engagement that all of our business resource providers really appreciated your presentation, your just knowledge and expertise to this topic. I feel like this is going to be one of many conversations, right? Because as you know, we're in this pandemic and we continue to be, we're just going to have to continue to evolve in the way that we engage our audience, in the way that we fundraise for our organizations. And so I just really want to thank you, immense gratitude for your participation today, and for everyone else that has joined us. In closing, I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and also to share that a recording of today's conversation, along with others, are featured on our social media and our special COVID-19 business resource portal, ChiBizHub.com/COVID-19 support. As well, we encourage you again to follow us on social for links to future webinars, grants, and information to help you better, run your business. And for our business resource providers, you already know, please await for more content specifically for you. On behalf of World Business Chicago and ChiBizHub, we wish you and yours good health, and thank you for joining us today.